Hello, welcome back to another episode of Bastions and Basilisks. This time I'm doing a review of a game called Brindlewood Bay. If you're familiar with the Powered by the Apocalypse system, then the mechanics are going to make sense, but I'm going to explain the mechanics of this game. So Brindlewood Bay is a role-playing game about mysteries. Could be murder mysteries. I didn't go into all of the mysteries, but it's really up to the Keeper, who Keeper is the game master, dungeon master, storyteller. So if you're familiar with other role-playing games, TTRPGs, then the Keeper is the person who kind of narrates and guides the game to an extent. Kind of outer limits, left and right limits. So the setting is, it's in a New England, like a small New England town called Brindlewood Bay. And the group are, it's a game for 2 to 4 players, and then the Keeper, so max 5 players. The players are the Murder Mavens, which are a group of older women who help solve mysteries, much like Murder, She Wrote, or Rosemary in Time, or any of those kinds of things. They have actually, the part of it is that they are amateur sleuths, and so they have actually helped the police solve crimes already, much to the police's frustration. They are also a fan, excuse me, they are also a fan of a series of books called The Gold Crown Mysteries by Robin Masterson, which features a globe-trotting super sleuth, Amanda Delacourt, which is something that you can utilize later on, and is also a narrative device that you can use. I just think it's super cool to have kind of like older women solving crimes as the theme of a game. So the basics are pretty simple. It's not really a combat game. It's not designed for combat, because you are older women. So like in your 60s, like they've retired. The whole thing is that your husbands have died, your kids have moved out. Maybe you've lost pets, whatever. Like, you're kind of living alone, and you join this group of like this book group who are fans of Robin Masterson's series of books. And then because you're all huge nerds about solving crimes, you help solve crimes. So what happens is the players in the scene describe what they are doing, and then the storyteller kind of decides what to roll. There are moves that you can use, but once again, I'll kind of explain those later on. So the characteristics or the abilities are vitality, which is your physical abilities, your composure, which is kind of your calmness in rough situations, your reason or your deduction, which obviously makes perfect sense, your presence or charisma, and then your sensitivity, which is your supernatural awareness to things, which can come into effect, and there are supernatural things. So it's not necessarily the plot of every mystery, but there is an overarching story that takes place. So like I said, if you're familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, you already know this. But so the game uses 2 6-sided dice, 2d6, and you roll them, and then based on what stats. So if you have a 1 in your vitality, and it is a roll that needs vitality, you roll 2d6 and you add your vitality. So I wish I had 2d6. I should have planned better. But let's say you roll a 6, a 2 and a 4, and then you get a +1 from your vitality. So now you have a 7. And then most of the things are either they're guidelines for success or failure. Some are hit or miss. So hit is 7+, or miss is 6 or lower. They say 6-, which makes sense. And then some are degrees of success, like a total miss, which is a 6 or lower, a 7 to 9, which is a partial success. Usually it's like you succeed, but at a cost. 10 to 11 is usually a success, just a success, and then 12+ is like an outstanding success. There is also an advantage, disadvantage, I don't know why I pronounce it like that, advantage, disadvantage system. So if one of your moves gives you advantage on something, or something happens to you, like you have a condition that gives you a disadvantage on something, What you do when you roll 3 dice, so 3 6-sided dice. If you have advantage, you take the 2 that are highest. So, like I said, you rolled a 6 before, so it's a 2, a 4, and a 3. Boom! Now you have a 7. Versus if you have disadvantage, you take the 2 and the 3, and now you have a 5. So it's a very simple system. Very there's to understand, I think. And then there's the Crown, which is a powerful narrative device that the Mavens can use once per session. So what happens is you roll. Let's say you rolled, something you don't have a plus in, so you rolled a 6. But that's like a complete failure. So something bad happens. I think the example they give in the book is, like a mobster finds out that you're spying on them or something, and then they throw you off a cliff. You can use the Crown to make it go up 1 tier of success. So you go from a miss instead of a 6. So instead of a miss, you go to the 7 and 9 success, or further. Depending on how narratively, like if it could be one of those situations where it's not necessarily a failure, but you kind of need the 12 plus success. So it's very useful, and it's not. I don't think it's game breaking mechanically, because I like mechanics. It's not game breaking because you can only use it once per session. And it's fun because it explains, you see that, this alternate timeline where things went bad. And if you think about, like, these TV shows, these mystery shows, there's always some dramatic, like, they cut to commercial as, she's being found out, or the car goes off a cliff or something. So it is one of those situations where they're kind of dramatic. So it adds to the dramaticness. I don't think that's the proper word, but the dramatization, boom, words, of the scene, which is a lot of fun. And like I put, it can make like a cliffhanger thing. So you roll at the end of a session, and that's another thing, is that there's a cliffhanger device in between sessions if you want, which is interesting. So now we kind of go on to the moves. Move on to the moves. There are the basic moves, which everybody can use. There's the day move, which is a move. It's just you do something during the day. There are specific guidelines. There are tiers of success, like I explained earlier. The night move, same thing, but more dangerous, because bad things can happen. Because moving around at night in a small New England town, is obviously a terrible idea. The meddling move, which meddling kids. Type of thing. The cozy move, which I really like. The big thing about this is you're all retired, so you all have some kind of cozy hobby that you do besides murder mysteries, like knitting or crocheting or sewing, or scrapbooking or leatherworking. I don't know. It really depends on the character. So the cozy move is a great thing because it allows you to remove conditions, interact with other players, so it gives you great role-playing situation, because it's you can organically role-play during other scenes, but this kind of forces you to, which I know forces sounds like a bad thing, but it gives you the option of having a nice, comfy role-playing scene with somebody discussing stuff. The Gold Crown Mysteries move, which is related to something you've seen in a Gold Crown Mysteries novel, and the whole thing is it's nifty because it has to relate to the current mystery. Like, there's guidelines, it has to relate to the current mystery, but you get to make it up because this is a series of books that doesn't exist really. So you and the other players can make up what happens in this scene and how it relates to what is going on in the current one. So it's like you're talking, something happens, you're like, oh, we can use sodium, pure sodium, because I saw it in MacGyver once, type of thing, but more thought out. That's just the first one that popped into my head. The occult move, because like I said, there's supernatural stuff in this game. So this is doing stuff occult related. You know, I think research or rituals or what. This is very specifically about occult knowledge or doing things occult related. And theorize is kind of how every episode of a mystery show ends. It's or kind of the players figuring out. You have to have a certain amount of clues. You have to roll a theorize check. You have to get a certain level of success. And the best part that I like about it is that it's not like the mysteries have the sample mysteries have specific clues. But as the keeper, you can decide that you're like, oh, that's a way better clue. We're going to use that one instead. So you can kind of mix and match. Because sometimes players will just have these way better ideas. As a person who's run games before, players have great ideas that you didn't think of. But, you know, once you get a certain amount of clues, they can theorize, and then they kind of solve the case, as it were. So there's two other sets of moves. There are special rules for these ones. The Maven moves and the alternate Maven moves. Only one player or only one character can have the moves per group. Because they are very specific and kind of powerful in some aspects. So the Maven moves are inspired by male TV detectives such as Columbo or Dale Cooper. And they're very specific. Like Columbo kind of stumbles his way into elite areas for some reason, and people don't see him as a threat. And then and one more thing, with his stogie. And then alternate Maven moves are mostly inspired by detective novel characters such as Robert Langdon or Nancy Drew. And those have different things that they give you as well. Some of them are stat boosts or ability boosts. Some of them are, you know, other moves. Like it's really interesting because if you were a fan of mysteries, then you're like, oh, I love, you know, Columbo and I love Nancy Drew, and then having those moves, you're like, I don't know, it adds to it. I think this game works if you're not a person who watches mystery shows, but I think it's expanded drastically, like exponentially better if you are a person who loves mysteries and mystery shows. Character generation is very simple. I'm not going to get into there's a whole format to how to do that, and you know, I could do that, but I don't want to right now, because usually it's the keeper and then the players that do it session 1, and that it's handled there. But it's a very simple thing. Like I said, if you played Powered by the Apocalypse before, you understand how it works. If you haven't, it's very simple. It is very, you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and like you discuss with other players while building the characters, because like, how do you guys know each other? Is it just through the club, or is it through something else? And I just think it's really interesting. So to the keeper, like I said, the keeper gets to decide what the mystery is. The cool thing about this compared to some other games is it's almost not procedurally generated, but the clues are not located in specific places, and in fact can be found wherever the Mavens are looking. So it's not like there's some games where you have to, like, you know, Sherlock Holmes, where you have to look in this specific area to find this specific clue, which to an extent makes sense, but in others, like, I was just playing the Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, and you just overhear people talking about stuff, and so it's possible to just overhear people talking about stuff while you're snooping. You don't know the explanation to any of the murder mysteries until the players do the theorize move. Like, that's the thing, is that it's the players kind of decide what the overall thing is. Like, the keeper kind of reins it in to an extent, but it's kind of the players that do the big thing. So it's as if Columbo was deciding in the moment, based on what they'd found, that this is what went down, and then that's what went down. It's so even if reality was 100, like, you're like, oh no, A killed B and framed C. That's what happened. But the players are like, no, B was killed by Q. Oh, you didn't expect Q out there. So it's an interesting thing. I really like, because it doesn't put it all on the keeper. It's the players come up with the ideas. And also, the murders are part of a larger conspiracy involving a death cult determined to summon a monstrosity from the depths of the ocean. So it's like Call of Cthulhu. Like, it's I'll get into that a little bit more, but in a little bit. But it's just, it's so fascinating that it's not just some old women solving some crimes. Like, it's I think I explained later. It's like it's Murder She Wrote meets Hot Fuzz meets Call of Cthulhu. Um, so as the keeper, yeah, you keep track of everything going on with the cult, because there is a cult. It is the Midwives of the Fragrant Void, and that is the cult of people that are just in town. That's why I said it's like Hot Fuzz, because it's people that the players have interacted with that are secretly cult members this whole time that you had no idea. Yarp. Um, and and you also, as a keeper, you describe the scenes, but you don't have to be like it does say that you don't have. I'm rewording it, but you don't have to be a narrative god um, to do it. There are sample mysteries in the book to draw inspiration from, so you don't have to come up with your own mysteries immediately. There's plenty, and then there's other ones you can find online. So you don't even have to come up with your own mystery at all if you don't want to. If that's not, if your brain doesn't work in a mystery way, um, but you want it, but you're a good storyteller, you can have, you can use their mysteries essentially. So there are conditions. Like I said earlier, conditions. There's the poisoned condition, or some. There's a bunch of conditions, and the most efficient way of getting cleared is by having an intimate scene with another maven while doing the cozy activity. Like I said, the cozy move. Um, the cozy move then leads to clearing conditions and finding a clue. That's the best part. It's like, you're like, oh, I'm not feeling good. Like, maybe you drank something that somebody sent you or whatever, and you don't feel good. So you have a nice knitting session with one of the other mavens, and you're talking, and you figure something out, because it's one of those like eureka moments. While doing something else, you figure this out. You put the pieces together. Um, all of that together is one of the core gameplay loops in Brindlewood Bay, which I love this. Conditions lead to intimacy, which then leads to clues and character development. So you're not just you as a person playing a character solving. You're not solving mysteries. You are Roberta, Thimbledorf or whatever, and hanging out with Brenda Tanglewood. I don't know. I'm terrible at names. I only think of fantasy names. And one to use knitting, one to use crocheting or whatever, and you're having a conversation, and you're kind of getting to know each other as characters. So it's drawing you into the characters, which is something that I love as a player. I love being, because I play characters as the character, not as a person. I try not to. I'm not human. I'm human, so I'm not perfect. There we go. But it's being the character. What would my character do in this scene? Not being a jerk about it. Like, my character would do that, and then you kill the party. But, like, it's, you're like, she likes, Brenda likes tea with a splash of honey, and specifically Earl Grey tea, because she watched this show in the 90s about this lovely, handsome gentleman who loved Earl Grey tea. So she tried it, like, and that's a thing, Or I guess this takes place in like the 70s or the 90s. So I guess this takes place before that, but like, maybe she started drinking Earl Grey tea because she saw something on television. So it's an interesting core mechanic, which I really like. I like when games choose to pick a core mechanic that isn't just fighting, I guess. So like I said, for the gameplay, I'm not going into everything for the Keeper, because there are whole chapters about this, and this would be a exponentially longer video, and generally people learn better by reading, so me explaining everything isn't going to help. but there are dark conspiracies, which is the so each mystery. So think of it like a season of a show. Each episode has its own mystery, and then there's the conspiracy, which is the overarching mystery of the season. Um, and that's what the midwives of the Fragrant Void are doing. So you solve the current mystery, possibly find clues about the bigger mystery, learn about the dark conspiracy that the midwives of the Fragrant Void are working on, which you know that there's some supernatural stuff in the town. You're aware of it. You just don't know who's a member. Hopefully stop them before they summon. They're called Child of Persephone from the ocean. They're bad. It's not bad. It's not good. Which is, Cthulhu-esque eldritch horrors, but dialed down. So it's a lighthearted game that gets pretty dark at times. And part of being the keeper is the midwives send agents to thwart or magic or rituals, or there's a whole lot more to it, like I said, and I'm not going to get too deep into that to try to thwart the players, which I think is really interesting. As far as the layout of the book, I like the system because it goes kind of explanation. I kind of follow the same format. The basics, which is the moves and the characters stuff, and then the keeper basics, and then the conspiracies, and then the senders and agents or whatever, and then Child of Persephone section, which describes different eldritch horrors that the midwives are trying to awaken, and like what signals them showing up, and then it kind of gets to the building a character session 1 stuff at the back of the book. I like it because it's you don't want you don't want session 1 stuff being like in the middle of the book, because then you have to flip through the whole book. But if it's at the end of the book, you can just go to the end of the book. Because character stuff, like understanding stuff about what stuff happens, and there's also if it gets confusing, if you're like, oh, this sounds kind of confusing about stuff, there are handouts. So you get a handout for character sheet. There's a ton of handouts that you can get that explain everything, like what moves you can do, like the basic moves, and like then there are the special moves, but usually you probably want to write those down to keep track of what special moves and what they do, and you have your character sheet where you customize who your character is. Overall, this sounds like a great game. Like I'm very interested in seeing. I don't know if I'd play it because I'm not great with mysteries, and I think I have too rigid of a mindset. But I'm also not opposed to trying it either. I can live in the moment with other players. And it does say that you're retired women, but I don't think that's necessarily. I think you could have retired men too, and as long because you're all friends. Like it's as long as you don't have, because I think that's the interest of, if they're all women, then theoretically they're not romantically involved with each other, and that's removing that mechanic out of the way. But I think you could have an older gentleman who lost his wife and just wants also enjoys these novels. I had a thought that it would be funny if brain Robin Masterson just hangs out in this town, and like if she's there, but like nobody knows what she looks like for some reason. Like maybe she's in disguise, or maybe she just doesn't put her stuff on the back of her book, doesn't really do, she's secretive or whatever, and it just would be funny if she's there just interacting with the players the whole time. That's kind of a thing that I thought of. But yeah, overall it's a good, very simple. The book is 168 pages. like I said, a chunk of that is there's the mysteries and then the overarching conspiracies, and there's a ton as a player. There's what you need in this book. It explains everything. I've explained everything. It explains everything. What you need as a player. As a keeper, it explains everything you need to run the game. It's a little bit more work for the keeper, but it always is. It's not simple for. It's never as simple for the keeper as it is for the players. But it does a lot of the heavy lifting by having the mysteries, having conspiracies that you can already there, having Child of Persephone things. Like it has everything there. You don't need to buy second, third books unless you want to. Like I said, there's other mysteries that you can find on their website. Yeah, but overall, I think this is a really good game, and I think everyone should at least play it once. Like, I'll even play it once, for sure. So thanks for watching.